Welcome to Movies in the Making. In today's episode, we are going to be looking at the 1974 crime drama film The Godfather Part II, released by Paramount Pictures and directed by Francis Ford Coppola, just like the first film. Here, we will dive deep into the story of the production of this film. With both the first film and its 1974 sequel winning Best Picture in 1973 and 1975 respectively, we shall continue to discuss the behind-the-scenes events that made the entire trilogy possible, going on into the second installment. Much like the first film, a lot of effort was made into creating one of the greatest films of all time. So, sit back and enjoy the show. You are all in for a mafia ride once again. After the success of The Godfather in 1972, its distributor, Paramount Pictures, insisted for director Francis Ford Coppola to make a sequel, but he was not eager to do so. To discourage the studio, Coppola made specific demands, including asking for a $1 million salary, which was a huge sum at the time, and suggesting that the sequel be named The Godfather Part II, inspired by Sergei Eisenstein's Ivan the Terrible films, which were released in 2 parts. While the studio found these demands outlandish, they agreed to proceed with the sequel, even after Coppola threatened to quit. The studio's response to him was essentially that he had created a hugely successful brand, like Coca-Cola, and they could not understand why he would stop. The film went through several proposed titles before setting on The Godfather Part II. Initially, Coppola suggested calling it Michael Corleone Returns, while Mario Puzo's original script was titled The Death of Michael Corleone. However, the studio disagreed with Coppola's preference for The Godfather Part II, fearing that it would make audiences think it was just a continuation of the first film rather than a separate story. Despite this resistance, Coppola won the arguments, and the title helped establish the naming convention for sequels that continues to this day. Coppola, who had a difficult time directing the first film, did not want to return as director for Part 2. Instead, he asked the studio if he could select another director and simply serve as a producer. The studio initially agreed, but when Coppola chose Martin Scorsese, a then emerging director, Paramount executives doubted his ability to handle the film. In hindsight, turning down Scorsese to direct a mafia epic seems absurd, especially given his later success with some of the genre's best films. Robert De Niro earned his role as the young Vito Corleone in Part 2, after dedicating himself to an extensive preparation, including months of studying Sicilian dialect. De Niro's notes, which helped him shape the role, highlighted his focus on maintaining a sinister steeliness, and his decision to remain still and reserved. Much like Brando's performance in the first film, he wrote reminders to himself, such as "never let people know what really thinking," and emphasized the importance of listening and restraint, particularly after the character's violent actions, like the killing of gangster Fanucci. The thorough preparation ultimately earned him his very first Academy Award for his role in Part 2. Lee Strasberg, renowned for his work as an acting teacher and founder of the Actors Studio, had a long career in theater but had only a few small film roles before The Godfather Part II. His role as Hyman Roth, a Jewish mob boss based on real-life gangster Meyer Lansky, marked his first major film role. Strasberg was cast after director Elia Kazan turned down the part and recommended him for the role. Although Strasberg had taught his method acting to stars like James Dean, Marilyn Monroe, Dustin Hoffman, and the film's leads Al Pacino and Robert De Niro, this was his significant breakthrough in Hollywood. John Cazale, who went on to become a celebrated character actor, was cast as Fredo Corleone in The Godfather after a fortuitous meeting with Al Pacino. Cazale, initially a cab driver and theater actor, gained recognition for his work in productions like The Indian Wants the Bronx and Line, which earned him multiple Obie Awards. It was during his time in Line that he caught the attention of casting director Fred Roos, who recommended him to Coppola for the role of Fredo. Cazale's connection to Pacino, with whom he had forged a close friendship, and his natural, empathetic acting style made him a perfect fit for the role of Michael Corleone's troubled brother. His character was minor in the first film, yet he plays a larger role for the second film. Although The Godfather was a massive hit, the cast initially accepted relatively small salaries due to the uncertainty of its success. When the sequel came around, however, actors like Al Pacino and James Caan demanded significantly higher pay. Pacino earned $500,000 for The Godfather Part II, compared to just $25,000 for the first film. Marlon Brando, who portrayed Vito Corleone in the original, also sought a higher salary for a planned flashback scene, requesting $500,000 plus 10% of the gross for just a few minutes of screen time. However, negotiations broke down, with some citing Brando's high demands and others pointing to the studio's anger over his refusal to accept his Best Actor Oscar in 1973. Coppola later commented that the cameo failed because Brando just doesn't like to work, and as a result, Brando was not featured in the sequel. Coppola's meticulous attention to detail sometimes frustrated money-conscious studios, as seen during the making of Part II. In an early cut of the film, with some actors in scenes set at the turn of the century wearing pants with zippers, which had not yet been invented. When a musician pointed out this historical inaccuracy, Coppola chose to reshoot the scenes rather than leave the mistake in the film. He replaced the zippers with button-fly pants, a decision that likely annoyed the studio as they had to finance additional reshoots to correct the wardrobe detail. The Godfather Part II was filmed in a variety of iconic locations that helped bring the world of the Corleone family to life. One of the most recognizable settings is the Fleur du Lac estates in Lake Tahoe, straddling the California-Nevada border. This stunning lakeside estate served as a backdrop for Michael Corleone's mansion, where pivotal scenes took place, including the tragic moment when Michael orders the death of his brother Fredo. The mansion itself, built by Henry J. Kaiser, is a real property with expansive grounds, including a pool, tennis courts, and a private marina. This location perfectly symbolizes the Corleone family's wealth and power under Vito's leadership. In addition to the American locations, Part 2 also ventured overseas to film Sicily, capturing the origins of the Corleone family. The town of Corleone, where Vito Corleone's rise begins, was portrayed by the picturesque villages of Forza d'Agro and Savoca in northeastern Sicily. These locations were used to depict Vito's early years, with keen scenes shot at Bar Vitali in Savoca, which has since become a popular tourist spot. The choice of these real Sicilian locations added authenticity to the narrative, showcasing the rural, Mediterranean landscapes that shaped Vito's character and his quest for revenge. The film also used New York City's East Village to recreate 1917-era Little Italy. The streets were transformed into a bustling neighborhood with famous locations like the 7B Horseshoe Bar used for pivotal scenes, including one where Cantangeli meets the Rosato brothers. Additionally, scenes involving young Vito Corleone's arrival in America were filmed at Ellis Island. For scenes set in Cuba, the production team chose the Dominican Republic, specifically Santo Domingo, as a stand-in. The editing team behind Part 2 played a crucial role in its success, contributing significantly to the film's iconic status. The editing was led by Barry Malkin, Richard Marks, and Peter Zinner, who expertly handled the film's complex narrative structure. The film used flashbacks to tell the story of Vito Corleone's rise to power while concurrently depicting Michael Corleone's struggles in his current position. This seamless transition between the past and present required precise editing to ensure the narrative flowed smoothly and effectively. The editing not only heightened the impact of key moments, like Michael's chilling confrontation with Fredo, but also played a pivotal role in establishing the epic's scope. Carmine Coppola, an accomplished conductor and Oscar-winning composer, became the co-composer of The Godfather Part II alongside Nino Rota. Carmine, the father of director Francis Ford Coppola, was a highly skilled musician who had later contributed to various notable film scores, including Apocalypse Now, United Artists 1979. He was also responsible for the score of the restored version of Napoleon, Gaumont Film Company, 1927. A monumental task that he undertook in 1980, ultimately conducting the symphony orchestra for its performance in 1981. Born in Italy and a graduate of the Juilliard School, Carmine had a long career in music, performing with prestigious institutions such as the NBC Symphony, and working as a first flutist under Toscanini. His contributions to Part 2 helped elevate the film's iconic music, cementing his legacy in cinema history. Part 2 holds the distinction of being one of the last American films to be printed using dye transfer Technicolor, a color cinematography process that involves synchronizing monochrome films in different colors to create a color print. This method was used for the film's original release, and it was later digitally restored as part of the trilogy in 2008, making it available on Blu-ray for modern audiences to enjoy. As of the 25th of February 2025, The Godfather Part II has a 96% critics rating on Rotten Tomatoes, a 90 out of 100 rating on Metacritic, a 9 out of 10 rating on IMDb, and a 4.6 out of 5 rating on Letterboxd. The film's budget was about $13 million and it grossed almost $47 million following its initial release date of the 12th of December 1974, making it the 6th highest grossing film of 1974. In 1983, Part 2 was chosen by the American Library of Congress to be reserved for the National Film Registry as culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. The film received 6 Academy Awards, 1 for Best Picture, 1 for Best Director to Coppola, 1 for Best Supporting Actor to De Niro, 1 for Best Adapted Screenplay, both to Coppola and Puzo, 1 for Best Art Direction to Dean Tavoularis, Angelo G. Graham, and George R. Nelson, and 1 for Best Original Score to Nino Rota and Carmine Coppola. It also received 5 other nominations, 1 for Best Actor to Pacino, 2 for Best Supporting Actor to Strasberg and Michael V. Cazzo, 1 for Best Supporting Actress to Talia Shire, and 1 for Best Costume Design, Theodora van Runkel. Coppola later apologized for his role in sparking the trend of sequels in Hollywood, admitting that he felt responsible for the proliferation of numbered movie sequels after making The Godfather Part II. In an interview with the Washington Post, he expressed embarrassment, acknowledging that his decision to title the 1974 film as Part II had unintended consequences. While Part II went on to become a critically acclaimed masterpiece, winning 6 Academy Awards, Coppola reflected on his initial reluctance to dive into the Godfather series and admitting that he thought the franchise might be a special failure. And that wraps up our deep dive into the making of The Godfather Part II. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to stay updated on all things movies in the making. Let us know in the comments what you think of The Godfather Part II, or if you have any favorite moments from that film we did not touch upon, or what films you would like to hear covered by this channel. Also, be sure to check out our community page, where we announce what films will be talked about by this channel each week. New posts arrive every Friday. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you all next time on Movies in the Making, where we will be talking about The Godfather Part III, Paramount Pictures 1990, and more films to follow along the way. Tune in for more Movies in the Making as we uncover the stories behind cinema's most unforgettable films. This has been Jason Scotchmer, film enthusiast and passionate about the arts.